Imagine an ER waiting room with your favorite blanket and pillow, your cat's Pixel and Widget, and your mom's chicken soup. At Dignity Health, we know the only thing worse than being in pain is being stuck in an ER waiting room. So we offer In Quicker. You get an estimated ER arrival time online so you can start your wait at home. It's just another way of putting leading-edge medicine within easy reach. Learn more at strosehospitals.org/ER. Dignity Health, including St. Rose Dominicans, Rose de Lima, San Martin, and Siena campuses in Henderson and Las Vegas. Hello, human kindness. Imagine an ER waiting room with your favorite blanket and pillow, your cat's Pixel and Widget, and your mom's chicken soup. At Dignity Health, we know the only thing worse than being in pain is being stuck in an ER waiting room. So we offer In Quicker. You get an estimated ER arrival time online so you can start your wait at home. It's just another way of putting leading-edge medicine within easy reach. Learn more at strosehospitals.org/ER. Dignity Health, including St. Rose Dominicans, Rose de Lima, San Martin, and Siena campuses in Henderson and Las Vegas. Hello, human kindness.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 441. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the program. So, we've all been waiting for information about the non-prosecution agreement that was heard in regards to the case Courtney Wild brought against the prosecution. And we have been waiting for a ruling in that case for quite some time now. Well, that ruling came down today, and like usual, the justice system proves inept. In a ruling of 7-4, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, in their infinite wisdom, ruled on the side of the government. But, if it's any consolation, they're really sorry that they ruled that way. Now, when you look at the majority's decision and you see some of the things that's said by these judges, it just doesn't ring true with reality, in my opinion. Especially considering the authors of this law that we're specifically talking about have already provided an amicus brief to the court saying that this is exactly what this law was put on the books for. So how in the world could these mini despots, these judges, continue to get away with making things up as they go along, the way they interpret the law? Here's an idea. How about you just make rulings on what the law is, not about your interpretation? It is just absolutely absurd to see this ruling come down by the 11th Circuit. Now, am I shocked? Not really. The 11th Circuit, well, look where it's based. It covers what? Florida, Georgia, and one or two other southern states, something like that. So you know what kind of judges you're going to get down there for the most part. And the main honcho here, Newsom, well, we've talked about this guy before, Mr. Harvard himself. Pretty funny how all the Harvard people rally around the family, huh? You never see these Harvard folk throwing each other under the bus for the most part. Up until Lessig came out with that op-ed the other day. You haven't seen any missiles fired at the grand institution of Harvard. So it shouldn't shock anybody to hear that that's where Mr. Newsom, the judge here, went to school as well. I have been on the fence about which way I thought this ruling was going to come down. And the longer it took, the less confident I was that it was going to come down in the proper manner. And while this is disappointing, it's not really all that shocking. We know that the just us system is completely corrupt. We know that there's a two-tiered justice system. And we know, obviously, that there's not any redress to be had if you're abused by these very powerful people or taken advantage of by these very powerful people. How could there be? The system is put into place by the very people that they're propping up financially. And this ruling right here just shines a light on the absolute broken situation that we are facing with our justice system here in the United States. And this case absolutely exemplifies that. Now, the next step, if they want to accelerate this, and the final step, as far as I know, now remember, I'm not a lawyer, right? Maybe there's other steps I don't know about. But it seems to me from the little bit of research I've been able to do about the situation that the next step is obviously going to the Supreme Court and petitioning the Supreme Court to hear this case. Now, if it was me, I would go all the way. 100% all the way. I will, if it was me, make sure that I flip over every rock, kick in every door, and shake every bush. Because what does this say? What sort of precedent does this set moving forward? So now this happens again? Some scumbag like Epstein can just point to the precedent that's already been set here? What, you don't think any other state prosecutors are in bed with scumbags? We see every day local politicians, politicians on the federal level, people in places of power being involved with corrupt scumbags. So if you don't think this could happen again, or if you don't think this is happening right now as we speak around the world, you're being very naive. And the court here just continues to enable Jeffrey Epstein and the remnants of his criminal enterprise. And folks, not even a sniff of RICO in sight yet. Really makes you wonder what they're doing down at the SDNY. Let's jump into the article, shall we? Tonight our article is from the Palm Beach Post. Headline: Federal Appeals Court deals huge blow to Jeffrey Epstein survivors looking for justice. This article was authored by John Pacenti, or Pacenti. Either way, I'm not sure which way my fellow paisan pronounces his name, but either way, that's the author. From the get-go, Jeffrey Epstein's teenage survivors were shortchanged justice in favor of the now-deceased Palm Beach sexual predator. Off to a good start, paisano, because that's exactly what happened here, okay? These girls, since the very jump, have been absolutely decimated, not only by Epstein and his disgustingness, but by the system itself. Talk about being chewed up and spit out and left hanging on the vine. That's what these girls have been facing. And then this ruling comes down and talk about just an absolute proverbial slap in the face. So basically the government is never going to be held accountable for anything, huh? And so much for all of the people that were championing Merrick Garland to me, or talking about how things are changed now that 45 is gone. Yeah, well, show me the change, all right? Stop gaslighting. Let's see some change. They hold Congress, they hold the Senate, and the president's office. After this obscene debacle we're seeing here, is anybody going to call for a congressional hearing and bring these scumbags, Barry Krischer, Acosta, Judge Marks, all of them up in front of Congress? Or do we just reserve that for show trials and when we're trying to score points by bringing professional athletes up for steroid-related scandals? Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think kids should be doing steroids, and I think, it's an important issue that should be addressed, right? But this is much more important in my opinion. And the fact that there's been no hearings, the fact that the government continues to make it an uphill battle for these girls, should tell you all you need to know about this case overall and where the case stands today. Whether it be former Palm Beach County State Attorney Barry Krischer treating them like prostitutes, or federal prosecutors cutting a secret deal with Epstein in 2007 behind their backs, Epstein survivors have been degraded and discounted in the courts. And show me the lie there. Show me where that is not a fact. And I'm not some advocate for anybody. But right is right and wrong is wrong, folks. And what's happened here is just so wrong that words can't even explain it or put it into context. and the continued doubling down on the past failures by the federal government is obscene. And they'll give you lip service, and they'll say how sorry they are. But you know what? Take your sorry and stuff it. We the people demand redress, and we demand justice. And Thursday was more of the same as the deferred prosecution agreement made by federal prosecutors with a big assist from Krischer appeared ironclad. Just reading that makes me ill. I mean, now you think you're disappointed reading it, or I'm disappointed reading it. Think about how the survivors feel. Think about how the gals who actually were abused by this scumbag feel. Or think about the girls who are being abused right now. Right? All over the world, or in America. They see this ruling, and do they have any confidence that the system is going to help them? That the system is going to be their stop where they go and they get the justice and the help that they need? Why would anyone think that? If you're going to be ridiculed and painted as a prostitute, why would anyone come forward and spill the beans on one of these jackwagons? So basically what the court does here is just, it keeps the system grinding along, doesn't it? The wheel just keeps on spinning. Well, folks, look, I have to tell you, I have no interest in the wheel slowing down. I have no interest in the wheel turning around, going the other way. I think it's time to break the wheel. The whole entire system needs to be fixed from the bottom up and from the top down for sure. All of it. And what time is better than the now? The U.S. 11th Circuit Court of Appeal, in a 53-page majority ruling, found that survivor Courtney Wild had no legal recourse to unravel the secret pact. The 7-4 decision came down mostly along gender lines, with all 4 dissenters female judges. Not even one of those dudes could look at this case and say, hey man, look, this is out of line. This is wrong. What happened here is wrong. What if it was your daughter? What if it was your wife, your grandchild? But it doesn't matter though, right? Because this is the way I interpret the law. Well, I got news for you. The amicus brief that was submitted by the actual people who wrote the law, they disagree with you. And no matter how you want to spin it, no matter how you want to paint it, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals has enabled Jeffrey Epstein and the remnants of his organization with this decision. That, most certainly, is my opinion. Wild said her rights under the Federal Crime Victims' Rights Act were violated because she and some 30 other survivors were not told of the deal being cut by U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta that also protected 4 named accomplices and other potential accomplices. Imagine that, huh? Imagine getting a deal that was so sweetheart, a deal that was so ripe for the picking, that not only was it named co-conspirators, but unnamed co-conspirators. Can you show me any other deals like that? Anyone got a deal like that? Mobsters who ratted on the whole organization and helped send 70, 80 dudes to prison didn't get deals like that. But somehow, this disgusting son of a bitch reels in one of these great plea deals. He just happens to cast his line out, and now he reels in a 1,200-pound bluefin tuna. The whole entire mess stinks from the beginning. And the fact that the Court of Appeals would make this raunchy-ass, stank-ass, gross-ass decision is just mind-numbing. Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw treated Epstein like a king during the Palm Beachers' 13-month sentence in the Palm Beach County Stockade. In there getting treated like Lex Luthor, huh? Got the life. Remember the scene in Goodfellas when they're all hanging out, they're all in jail, and Big Paulie's in jail with them. He's cutting the garlic. They get the wine brought in. They're eating sandwiches. They're having steaks. The whole nine. That was Jeffrey Epstein's life, but he wasn't no mobster. No, he was something more. He was a bag man for some of the most powerful, most connected people in the world. Point blank, period. Prove it wrong. Anyone who thinks that that's not correct, prove me wrong. Let's see the evidence. Because you only get a deal like this when you're being babied. You only get a deal like this when you're getting the homie hookup. He allowed Epstein to spend most of it out on work release, where Epstein was allowed to have sex on at least one occasion, according to court documents. Yeah, we know more than that, according to Denise George, right? He was still up to his old tricks. And who were the cops on that security detail that he was supposed to pay to be with him? What did they see? When did they see it? And what do they know? Have they been brought in anyone talk to them yet? The government really likes to flex their muscles on poor people. The government really likes to flex their muscles on people with no resources, where they got themselves a slam dunk conviction. Oh, I got some middle of the road pot dealer. Yeah, let's book him, Dano. And then they'll laugh on an episode of Cops like they're saving the world. Meanwhile, they got a mountain of evidence, human trafficking, abuse of women, money laundering, coercion of witnesses, the Mann Act. Should I go on? I mean, does the prosecution want to deputize me for a day? I'll come down there and I'll whip this shit right into shape. Give me one day. I'll go sit and do a little bit of research. Give me a paralegal or two. I'll come up with some charges for you. What the hell are you guys doing over there? Once upon a time, before the pandemic, U.S. Representative Lois Frankel, Democrat from West Palm Beach, called for congressional hearings where Acosta, Krischer, and Bradshaw would testify. Well, that would be nice. That would be real nice. So we can't use the pandemic as an excuse anymore, okay? I don't want to hear that anymore about this stuff. The world has to go on, folks. We have to start conducting business and moving on and doing the people's work, right? We can't stagnate. We've done it for a year. It's time. Let's get these hearings going. These people need to be brought up to Congress. They need to be put under deposition. And if they lie to the FBI, they lie to Congress, they need to be treated like anyone else who has committed the same crime. And they need to be prosecuted. What are you guys waiting for? Brad Edwards, Wild's attorney, said he and his client were disappointed in the ruling, but not really surprised. I feel your pain, Brad Edwards. I feel your pain, because as much as it's disappointing, it is not surprising. One doesn't have to dig too deep to see how broken the justice system is. Every single one of these courtrooms is like their own fiefdom run by a feudal overlord. And there's no redress. What do? You can appeal it, and then what happens when that's done? That's it. It's a wrap. The party's over. Through our case and efforts, Courtney's courage to stand up for her rights has already changed the law and public awareness, Edwards said. That's for sure. We can't forget that, right? We can't forget all of the valiant effort put forward by Courtney in this matter. She stood tall before the wagon, been the tip of the spear, and charged hard to hold the government accountable. Not many people have the wherewithal to do that, so definitely a tip of the hat to Courtney for continuing fighting the good fight, and fighting a hard fight too. Certainly uphill. We are not finished, and we expect to use this unjust result to make corrections through Congress that will ensure the rights of crime victims are never again trampled on to this magnitude again. I'd like to take it a step further, so that they're never trampled on again. That goes for men, boys, women, girls, anybody in between. Equal justice under the law. How many times do I gotta parrot that shit from my pulpit over here? That's all I've ever asked for, folks, and that's what has me so incensed. We're not seeing it. And we can all sit back and accept it, and we could just say, oh, that's the way the system is. We know it's rigged. Or we could all get up in arms and we can demand change, and we can help foster that change by electing better politicians. We got to start somewhere, and I certainly don't have all of the answers. In fact, I don't have any of the answers. But I know the course that we're on is unsustainable as a society. Nobody has trust in the institutions, Republican, Democrat, or anyone in between. Wild ended up at the appellate court after U.S. District Judge Kenneth Mara in West Palm Beach found that even though the victim's rights were violated, he could not throw out the non-prosecution agreement because Epstein was dead. I mean, how ludicrous is that? Because he's dead? So because he's dead, that means that's the end of it. Everybody should just pack up their things and go home. You weren't abused by him. That's it. And then what happens is the only redress these girls have is to sue the estate. And then when they do that, they're called money grubbers, gold diggers. It's just about the money. Well, what are you supposed to do? There's no redress. The court leaves you no other options. What do you do? So, like I've said from the jump, if I was one of these gals, I'd be going for that money too. At the very least, it's the estate admitting that Epstein committed these crimes and abused these girls. Even if the court is getting pantsed over and over and looking like a complete clown show. The fact that that compensation fund was set up and that the payments are going out is confirmation that Epstein was the scumbag everybody knew he was. It's a shame that the criminal court is still in the bag. 1 year ago to the day, a 3-judge panel for the 11th Circuit rejected Wild's effort to overturn the agreement. And we were there to cover that as well. You know, I'll fire those off as flashback episodes in the next couple of days. And we can go back and look at some of the things we talked about previously and where we ended up. I always like to go back and look and see how the case is twisted, how it is turned. And cataloging it all here is just perfect. It found the law didn't apply because federal prosecutors didn't indict Epstein themselves and instead punted the case back to Krischer. Was it by design? Of course it was. I'm sorry. Everything that happened was by design. And when I say by design, I don't mean by the prosecutors. I mean by Epstein's high-profile lawyers, led by Gerald Lefcourt and Mr. I Kept My Underwear On, Alan Douchey Dershowitz. They led the dance. What do you think, the state prosecutor's office was calling the shots? Stop it. That would be like a street gang calling the shots with the Sinaloa cartel. It's not gonna happen. Epstein's lawyers bullied and brooded these guys out of the way. Got Krischer to do everything they wanted, and Mukasey signed off on it like the stooge he is from Washington, D.C. There is so much blame to go around here that everybody can have seconds. So by scuttling their own 53-page sex trafficking indictment for state solicitation of prostitution charges, federal prosecutors weren't required to inform Epstein's victims they had cut what some called the deal of the century, the court found. And what do we always talk about here, guys, right? Loopholes? And this is why it makes me mental. They write these laws to virtue signal. Oh, we're doing something. We're making a difference. We're different than the last Congress. But there's loopholes all over it so that they and their friends can maneuver their way out of it. And how could we expect Congress or the Senate to really champion this cause when they have their own slush fund that they use to pay off accusers of their own misconduct? Talk about letting the wolf in the sheep's pen. In August, the 11th Circuit Court granted a rehearing in front of all the judges. The majority decision on Thursday was one convoluted by 2 concurring and 1 dissenting opinion, where some members of the court agreed with some parts and disagreed with others. You could expect that in a court hearing, right? There's going to be judges that swing one way or another, but might have a different opinion about a matter that is kind of, similar. So all of these court rulings are complex for the most part, but I don't know how anyone can defend this ruling by these judges at this point. The majority opinion was written by Judge Kevin Newsom, who called the facts underlying all things Epstein a national disgrace. I'm glad you see it that way, judgy boy from Harvard. How about some action? A lot of lip service from the 11th Circuit. A lot of lip service from Judge Newsom. No action, though. Your apologies and all of that, I'm sure fall on deaf ears. If I don't want to hear that shit, and the people out there following this case and the general public don't want to hear it, you think the survivors want your sorries or your thank you or your I'm really sad that this happened and I'm sorrowfuls? They don't want that. They want justice. We have the profoundest sympathy for Miss Wild and others like her who suffered unspeakable horror at Epstein's hands. That's the court saying it, by the way, as well, that Epstein did abuse these girls. They're confirming it, again, here in the court. So is that slander? Is that defamation? If it is, then why doesn't Epstein's people sue? Because, folks, we've been over the target the whole time, all right? Epstein was a disgusting sexual predator, a pedophile, and a sick bastard. Not a financier, none of that other jazz, okay? All of that stuff goes away when he becomes this other monster that we know him to be. And so it seems affirmatively misled by government attorneys. Even so, we find ourselves constrained to deny Miss Wild's petition. Oh yeah, I'm sure you do. Who you guys protecting? Old Billy Clinton, perhaps? What did old Billy Boy Clinton and his meeting with Kamala get things in motion? Obviously, I'm being cynical there, folks, right? But the optics aren't good, first of all. Second of all, what is there left to hide here? What are you guys trying to protect? There is no good reason, and none offered by the majority opinion, where it sways me and even makes me think, all right, well, look, I might not like this ruling, but I understand it. There's plenty of rulings that have come down that I might not like in this case, but I understand them. I don't understand this ruling. This is foreign. This might be written. They might as well have taken a page from some empire in a different universe and dropped it in my lap. That's how foreign this all is to me. How dare you? In what functioning society is this non-prosecution agreement upheld? Newsom said the issue comes down to whether Wild, under the Crime Victims Act, could file a freestanding lawsuit to enforce her right. Judge Frank Hull, a senior judge and a woman, seethed in her dissenting opinion, saying the majority eviscerates the Crime Victims' Rights Act and makes the Epstein case a poster child for an entirely different justice system for crime victims of wealthy defendants. Let me read that to you again, okay? The majority eviscerates the Crime Victims' Rights Act and makes the Epstein case a poster child for an entirely different justice system, two-tier justice system, folks, for crime victims of wealthy defendants. Big facts. Show me the lie in her statement. Judge Hull has been stalwart in her support of the motion made by Courtney Wild. She had a very strong dissenting opinion the last time around, and she continues on that track here. The 11th Circuit should be ashamed of themselves, honestly, folks. Hull wasn't finished, noting Wild had spent a decade seeking to vindicate her statutory rights expressly created by Congress. And again, I hate to bring it up, but the amicus brief that was filed by the very people who wrote the law backed Courtney in her challenge here, in her fight for justice. So how in the hell can these judges tell me what the law is when the people who wrote it explained it completely different? So this is the way the judge and his pals interpret the law, folks. This isn't how the law was written. At the very least, according to the amicus brief that was supplied in support of Courtney's case. Today, the majority tells Miss Wild and other victims that all of that was for naught, since they never had the right to file their motion in the first place back in 2008, Judge Hull wrote. Look, I'm almost speechless right now. That doesn't happen very often. Use your words, Bobby, right? It is disgusting. I don't know what other word to use. Disgusting to see this take place. All of these years of looking for some justice. And then to have a court like the 11th Circuit poo-poo the whole entire thing is just beyond the pale. The Epstein survivors have no remedy as the government's appalling misconduct. Judge Elizabeth Branch also wrote a dissenting opinion, stating that the majority reads restrictions into the Crime Victim Rights Act that simply do not exist. Exactly right. Pretty simple. What they should have done? The people who wrote the law, they should have been brought down in front of the judges. They should have asked them what the intent of that law was. And when all three of them, from different political parties, by the way, got on board and they all said and pointed out that we wrote the law for this exact reason. How can these judges go off the reservation and interpret them the way they want to read it? Something has to change because there's a lot of that goes on in the criminal justice system. And I will continue to rail about it until you folks are tired of hearing about it. Because it is a huge problem in society, folks, when there are two different justice systems at work. One for them and one for us. The questionable conduct on both the state and federal level came to light only because of news reports. 100%. If it wasn't for the news reports, nobody would have been the wiser about this stuff. The Palm Beach Post broke the story on the deferred prosecution agreement, and in November 2019, uncovered that Krischer had decided that Epstein's victims were prostitutes and sank his own case when it was first presented to the state grand jury. Now, remember when we read those articles. Mind-blowing the way Krischer went about all of that. Using MySpace to paint these young girls as prostitutes. Really? Prostitutes? Why? Because they might have had a couple of drinks and had kissed a boy? Breaking news, that's what 14-year-olds do. The way that they absolutely went about it, destroying these girls, is unconscionable. And I still want to see those grand jury documents. So what's up, Ron DeSantis? You run around like you're a maverick, right? Well, get to work, homie. Let's get that stuff put out into the public sphere. The Post is seeking that grand jury transcript in court. New York prosecutors in 2019 charged Epstein with sex trafficking as the agreement protected him in South Florida. So that agreement has been a wrench in the situation from the day it was signed. And nobody is being held responsible for it. Nobody has been held responsible for it. And they continue to laugh it up and yuck it up, all hanging out at the golf club. Former girlfriend, co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, charged with sex trafficking. When Epstein died, reportedly at his own hands, reportedly is right, allegedly, prosecutors then charged his chief enabler, very nicely done, former girlfriend, not so well done, Ghislaine Maxwell, with sex trafficking. So that was coming anyway, right? If Epstein was going to be charged, all of these people were going to get slapped as well. There's no doubt about it. Around the same time Epstein was charged, former U.S. Attorney Acosta, whose office masterminded the secret deal with Epstein, I don't buy that. Again, Mukasey, all right? You got to think bigger. Expand your horizons, especially when we're dealing with the government. This doesn't happen at a bureaucrat level. This goes all the way up the chain. And in fact, Mukasey's deputy is the one who signed off on it. Resigned from his post as U.S. Labor Secretary in the Trump administration. Yet, Newsom blamed the media in his majority opinion, inferring that it was the fault of news outlets that the injustice occurred. He cites one NPR story, ignoring the record. Imagine blaming the media here for the fault of the prosecution. Somebody has to hold the buck, right? Somebody has to be the scapegoat for the court's own screw-up, for the government's own screw-up. Way to pick up the pieces and clean up the spilled milk, Honorable Judge Newsom. We needn't discuss the particulars of Epstein's crimes or the fact that the national media essentially ignored for nearly a decade the jailing of a prominent financier for sex crimes against young girls, Newsom wrote. I mean, I agree with him, right? But save it. The courts are the ones that hold the keys, literally and figuratively, and they're the ones who really failed. The media is on board as well, there's no doubt. The legacy media is a joke. But we're not passing the buck here. Spotlight's on you, Honorable Judge Newsom. Hull, though, was having none of that. While the majority laments how the national media fell short on the Epstein story, this case is about how the U.S. prosecutors fell short on Epstein's evil crimes, she wrote in the dissenting opinion. So, there you have it, folks. The 11th Circuit has rendered their decision. Certainly not the decision we wanted, but that's the decision they made. So the fight continues for justice, right? Nobody said it was going to be easy. Nobody said that things were always going to bounce in the right direction, but the fight goes on. And I hope that Courtney and her lawyers are looking at all of the different factors surrounding things, and if they feel like an appeal is the right decision for them to appeal up to the Supreme Court, then I really hope they do it. Because justice, my friends, has still not been served here. And the fact that Epstein and his remnants continue to skate by scot-free because of this draconian NPA, well, it's enough to really, really make one's blood boil. And I'm sure that plenty of people out there who are listening to this tonight feel the same way. What it does is it just shows you folks that the justice system is absolutely broken. And the two-tier justice system is certainly fully on display for everybody to get a look. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, folks, tomorrow morning is a new day. We'll see what sort of corrupt nonsense the federal government is up to then. Have a great night, everyone.
Imagine an ER waiting room with your favorite blanket and pillow, your cat's Pixel and Widget, and your mom's chicken soup. At Dignity Health, we know the only thing worse than being in pain is being stuck in an ER waiting room. So we offer In Quicker. You get an estimated ER arrival time online so you can start your wait at home. It's just another way of putting leading-edge medicine within easy reach. Learn more at strosehospitals.org/ER. Dignity Health, including St. Rose Dominicans, Rose de Lima, San Martin, and Siena campuses in Henderson and Las Vegas. Hello, human kindness.
IBM Cloud offers millions of different server configurations with 20 terabytes of bandwidth cost-free. Get the compute power you need and deploy on demand, but at prices set for smart cost management. Visit ibm.biz/baremetal servers to customize your server today.